There is one element of ball striking that golf pros just won't tell you about, but it could massively improve your golf game. Hi everyone, my name is James Robinson. Welcome back to Get Good at Golf. If you want to do just that, hit that subscribe button and throw a like on this video. Today, we're talking irons and we're talking about how to strike the perfect crisp iron. You see, you may have seen circulating on social media a discussion between Tiger Woods, if anyone's heard of him, and Scotty Scheffler, who I believe is currently the world's #1 best player. And he said Tiger was just clipping some shots away, and Scotty said, "Tiger, why aren't you taking divots?" And Tiger jokingly said, "Oh, when I hit it well, I don't take divots." And you could kind of see Scotty Scheffler's brain frying a little bit there. He said, "Well, you do take a divot because you want to compress it into the ground, you want to get less dynamic loft, all the correct things, get the right spin rate, and be in control of that club face." Now, what you don't want to see, and what we see very often, is a divot that's a little bit out of control, should we say. And what I'll do is I'll throw on a divot that's out of control because I don't want to take one out of Jones's luscious fairway here on the second hole at Waterfront Golf Club. It wouldn't be fair. But what you can see is when people start to do that, generally you'll see a couple of areas that dictate how the club interacts with the ground. And it's not the leading edge, it's not the club's problem, it's not the turf's problem either. You should be able to hit shots off a fairly moist lie and still not duff it, basically, or Damien it, as we like to say on the channel. So what you'll see generally is someone who maybe picks the club up a little bit steep, the club gets really, really high, and then a couple of factors might go in the downswing where you might see golfers slide into the impact position here and then throw the club down the ground. You'll see that gets that leading edge interacting with the ground pretty awfully, to be honest, and that is because we're getting a steep angle of attack. So if you slide your body in, how are we going to combat that? Generally what we want to do is we want to see a nice rotation on the way down, because rotation not only is the fastest method of getting club head speed, rotational speed is faster than lineal speed or something like that, but we want to see a nice shallow angle of attack. So if I were to do this, you'll see I take the club away nice and low to the ground, load up to the top of the backswing, and from here what I want to do is rotate into that ball. Yes, I'm going to have forward shaft lean. Yes, dynamically I'm going to de-loft this club a little bit, because what that means is the ball's going to set off nice and low, nice and controlled. That's why tour pros hit their irons so far. Yes, to swing it fast. Yes, some of them are jacked up and really, really strong, but generally it's about the de-lofting of the golf club. And if that golf club is de-lofted, it's generally under a lot more control because it's square to the arc the whole time. It's not square to the target the whole time. If a golf club was square to the target the whole time, it would look like this. And you do see people try and do this. "Oh, I'm keeping the club square." No, you're not. That is not square to what we want it to be. We want the club square to the natural arc because the club moves around the body. So once you do this and you set the club up nicely so the butt of the club is pointing down to the ball, there's a video on the channel this week about how to work the butt of the club. We rotate down, we get that natural rotation of hip, that clears out the way. That's key. If you slide to the left, there's a song there, DJ whatever it was called, then there's no room for the hands to get this way. So that's when you start to hit down on it and then across, or you might start to really throw it out and hit the unmentionable that we don't want to talk about. So if I hit you a nice shot now, you'll see that the divot we want to take ideally is this kind of divot. That's a lovely high fade into this flag that might finish fairly close. But the divot we want is this one. It's a nice shallow divot. You can see the turf's broken up a little bit at the end. That's not really anything you can control. But the divot we have, if you like to come over here, is this kind of divot. So it's not a massive wad, it's not a huge slug, it's just a nice little crisp divot. Now if the turf was crisper, you might see a little bit of a thinner divot, but the fact that it's a moist fairway and I've still managed just to take a nice divot there, which we're going to put back nicely, just shows that we can attack into a ball, we can hit down into a ball whilst keeping a nice angle of attack, whilst hitting, let's be fair, greens in regulation. And the big thing that I'm going to try and do is do this consistently so I can consistently be good at golf, and that divot is exactly the same. Tell me where that divot's pointing, by the way, because I'll tell you where it's not pointing. This is a little bit of bonus content for you. The divot's not pointing at the flag. Why is the divot not pointing at the flag? We mentioned earlier about a natural arc around the body, so the club has to exit left in order to work around the natural arc. So I haven't come across the ball there. I've just hit a nice straight shot, maybe with a little bit of fade on it, but that is the perfect shot into this flag, and that is how you take a divot correctly.
So guys, again, talking divots there, a prime example of what James has been speaking about. That one's nicely close just to the right of the flag. But you look at that divot, one big thing that James mentioned there is obviously it's the whole length of the club that is bruising through the turf. So it is taking that divot. And that's the main thing here. If you start to see divots that are really thin, and it looks like that potentially the club has gone through at that kind of angle. So if my club goes through this way, the divot's going to be very thin. It's not going to be the full length of the blade. So depending on what irons you're using, it could be a different size. But that's where you've got to break down, what are you doing? Are you hitting your ball to your right?
What are you doing?
Oh, correct. What are you doing in general? But are you losing the ball to the right? Are you losing the ball to the left? That could dictate what your divots are telling you. So if you come through and you see a thinner divot, you might see that your club's coming in open. Obviously it's not the full blade length, and you take a very thin divot. If you're losing the ball to the right and you've got thin divots, right, we know that we need to think about our release pattern. We need to release that club a little bit more so the toe squares up. We take a more crisp square or rectangle divot, depending on what you want to call it. But then obviously the opposite, if you're starting to see the ball going left, you're also going to start to see a thin divot. So you have to think, if I come in and I'm closing that club face through impact and it's like this, again, it's not going to be the full blade length divot. So we're going to be able to say, yeah, actually I'm closing that face down, that's why I'm hitting it 40 yards left, and that's why I've got thin divots. What I might want to do there is think, right, I need to hold that release a little bit later so that club face doesn't close down too much, and I'm going to be able to hit much straighter shots. And that's where you can read your divot. A lot of people, just like James mentioned, start to read the divot. Oh no, actually, again, look at that. I mean, I flushed it, it's just gone to the right of the flag. I played a nice fade, but that's pointing to the left of the green, so that's no good. I need to work on getting that divot more neutral, more straight, more out to the right. All that's going to happen then is I'm going to miss the green to the right, and if I'm missing the green, then we're not going to lower our scores, and we're certainly not going to get good at golf. So start to think there, when you set up, we know, what are you trying to catch first? Are you trying to catch the ground first, or are you trying to catch the ball first? Correct. I hope you've said you're trying to catch the ball first.
The small ball before the big ball.
Correct. You're not trying to hit the ground first. So we want to be taking the ball, and then as a result, like James mentioned, the divot is after strike. So that club will be working nicely just to the left. Okay, if this divot is pointing over there, then we might have some concerns about your swing path, and that might be something you want to work on. If you've got a nice square divot but it's pointing over there, we know that it is your swing path or your club path that is causing you to hit a slice. So start to read your divots better, start to think about that, and that's one, like we said, misconception, that your divot has to be straight. Once we're in here now, we can get that set up, we can make sure we take those divots, and hopefully, not a bad shot, just started a little bit left, but you can see again there, a nice square divot next to that one, a little bit steeper there, so I can start to think, right, I came down on that one a little bit, but the good thing and the positive thing I can take from that is that it's nice and square, my clubs are fitted correctly, I'm returning the club how I should. Maybe my aim was a little bit off there, and that's something that we need to talk through on another video. But guys, start to read your divots better, start to think, are you going through with an open club face, are you going through with a closed club face, and is that why you're not hitting greens, and it's stopping you from getting good at golf?